Dave Birkett here, along with Carlos Monarrez and Shawn Windsor. And guys, it's the week after the news of the Matthew Stafford trade request broke. And in case anyone's been living under a rock, Matthew Stafford went to management after the season, told them he'd like to be traded. They agreed to table that discussion. And finally, after they got Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell in, they reconvened, and the organization agreed to make his wish happen, essentially. And I expect this to happen now here in the coming weeks. Before the new league year starts, or when the new league year starts, the deal will be consummated. But a deal should be in place. Talking to someone last night, fully expect the Lions to begin trade discussions in earnest this week. Senior Bowl week, I don't know that they have a big contingent going down there, but a lot of these discussions start happening. So let's start there. First of all, Shawn, let's go to you. Look, I believe, at least, I think you're sort of, you and I sort of think alike with some of these things. Carlos, he's way off in left field. This was a move that had to happen, right? I mean, for both parties, it's a good thing because you look at where the Lions are. They're entering a complete rebuild. You look at where Matthew Stafford is at this point in his career, 2 years left, his age, his injury history. To me, this is the right move for both him and the organization.
Well, I agree with that. I don't know that it had to happen. I mean, if he wanted to stay and give it and run it back, did you break the news, or did somebody say that? Did I see a report that if Bevel had stayed, he might have considered staying? I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe he didn't want to learn a new system, but the fact is he's going to have to learn a new system wherever he goes. So I agree. I think it's good for both parties, especially for Stafford, because I think he believes in his talent and believes that maybe he gets in the right spot and he might have a shot at winning at a different clip. And at his age, at 33, he's, how many years does he have left in his prime? Don't say Tom Brady. He's an outlier, right? I mean, we've never seen anything like what he's doing, but reasonably, what's he have? 3-4 years maybe that he can still sling the ball around and process information at that clip. So he wanted to
zero. Wow, Carlos.
What's that?
Carlos just held up the zero. He said no years left.
I mean, he doesn't, but I don't know that it had to happen, but I don't think it's a bad thing that it did happen. And it's interesting, you think about how many markets, the way the fan base has reacted to this, most of it is like, yeah, go get your, go chase a playoff run somewhere. You know what I mean? You put your time in here. It's kind of been interesting. I know there's some people that are saying good riddance, but I think that's in the minority, to be honest.
No, I think most people, just to address the Darrell Bevel, report real quick. Look, Stafford wanted out. Okay. I mean, I don't think this had as much to do with Darrell Bevel and where he ended as just he was beat down like Barry Sanders was and like Calvin Johnson was. It's just, he wants to keep playing and those guys didn't. That's what this organization has done to too many players for too long. He did not want to go through a rebuild. Had Darrell Bevel been here as head coach or maybe as offensive coordinator, maybe that might have made him a little bit less likely to ask for this. But I think this was done when the season was done, probably during the season. He wanted this to happen. And frankly, this wasn't about Dan Campbell keeping Darrell Bevel as offensive coordinator. Darrell Bevel didn't want to come back as offensive coordinator once he got passed over for head coach. So that was not going to happen at all. And that's why we are where we are again today. Matthew Stafford and Kelly Stafford, they've put their house back on the market. This trade is going to happen. I know, people have said over the weekend that it's only happening if they get fair market value. They will get a first round pick, something of that ilk, and Matthew Stafford will be playing for a different team in 2021.
Carlos?
Yeah. I hate to admit it, but I'm kind of in agreement with Shawn. I don't know if it had to happen. If I'm looking at it from the Lions and from Stafford's point of view, he absolutely wants to go. Why? Because he's 33. The injuries are piling up. He's having a hard time getting through the season now. He knows he wants one more contract at least, right? He wants to cash in. He wants to go somewhere and get a new contract extension or whatever. He knows the clock is ticking, and the Lions aren't going to extend him. So he needs to go somewhere before his body completely shuts down. Makes sense from his point of view. And I don't blame him for not wanting to go through another rebuild. And it's going to be a slow one. I mean, no matter how much Brad Holmes calls it a retooling, it's a rebuild and it's going to be a long and slow one. So I don't blame Stafford for wanting to leave. But I agree with Shawn, though, that I don't think this had to happen. I mean, if I'm the Lions, I want all options on the table. I want potentially to bring back Stafford, because he's as good as any free agent Tyrod Taylor type guy you're going to bring in here to back up a first round pick or whatever, a young quarterback. That's you have more options, right? The quarterback, the rookie can start, they can sit, whatever. If you have a guy in place.
Well, he is, but this is why I say it had to happen, because what are you if you're the Lions and you keep him? You need to tear this thing down in order to reach where you want to reach, right? And I don't think the Lions would have done this by themselves. They needed Matthew Stafford to go to them and say, hey, I want out. And that really gave them, I compared it to like, I don't know, high schoolers that are dating, right? And the guy wants to break up with the girl, but he's not really sure, prom's coming up. He's like, what am I going to do? And finally the girl breaks up with him. And then he's like, yeah, it should have happened long ago anyways. Like, both parties needed to separate, because because the Lions could not start over. They could not tear this thing down to the studs without Stafford being gone and without getting the draft pick compensation that they're going to get.
Which they're going to
help the rebuild.
But Dave, they're going to use that more than likely. I mean, maybe they won't, but they're going to use that compensation on a quarterback, right? So it's not like they're going to get a defensive stud in the first round. I mean, maybe they will, but
you got 2 first round picks potentially now, and maybe you have to use one to get up. But I don't know. I don't know that you're going to have to use one.
I mean, you might not have to do that, but you're going to at least use one of them. So I guess you can get a defensive player. Look, if they really believed in the retooling and that's on the defensive side, then maybe they could make one more run with him and the culture change and everybody stays healthy on offense. They'd have a pretty good offense. I don't know.
12 years. They made no runs in 12 years. There's no reason to believe they would make one in the next.
I understand that. I totally understand that. But to me, it was really up to Stafford, right? And in a sense, and that he wants to go. The fact that the Lions are going to agree to that, I think is smart. And I mean, obviously they're doing it in their own best interest, but it's good for Stafford too. He wants to go try somewhere else. So what I don't think he's doing is selfish, which is what Carlos wrote today.
Let's hear that. Let's hear that side of things.
How is this not selfish? I want to hear Shawn. How is this not a selfish move?
It's not.
You put 12 years in and you got 2 years left in your contract and you want to, and a new front office and coaching staff's coming in and you say, I'd like to be traded after 12 years. You think that's selfish?
Yes.
Well, look, maybe it's selfish. Go ahead, Carlos. I'm sorry.
Well, it's selfish. Mostly it's selfish because he went to them. He should have done whatever he could have done to make it known he'd like to move on without having to ask for it, basically demanding a trade. Because once you ask for a trade, once your star quarterback asks for a trade, then that's it. You're going to have an unhappy situation. Just look at Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's a different situation, but you can't have Deshaun Watson on that team anymore.
No, it's very different, right? I think that organization, Carlos, is dysfunctional even in a different way than this one
right.
is.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And the fact that, and I don't know that he's demanded and he's miserable. I think it's just time for a change. He didn't call up reporters and say, hey, look, I want to get out of Detroit. I mean, he hasn't hurt their leverage at all. I don't know who leaked it.
Maybe it's probably his agents that leaked it. So, Carlos, I think you're right there that, yes, but who cares? I mean, it doesn't, being selfish about this is not a bad thing. Players should have, if he wants out, that's on him to say so. And he said so. And it doesn't matter what it does to the Lions. A, B, I don't think it's going to hurt their bargaining position. Why should he care about helping the Lions, bargaining position when he's trying to get out and get himself to a better situation? He's getting all he can for this organization.
Well, no, it's not just that. He's going to want to have a little bit of, not say so, not that he will, but hopefully the Lions will send him to the kind of place where he can contend a little bit. So he's beholden to them for a little bit. So he doesn't want to completely alienate him, right? So he's got to care some, I would think, Dave.
Well, but the only people that are going to want to trade Stafford and want to give up the price that it's going to cost are going to be teams that view themselves as being a quarterback away, right? If you're not trading Matthew Stafford, whoever has let's say the number 3 pick in the draft, right? Or the New York Jets, right? They're not a quarterback away. The number 2 pick. They're not that Stafford.
Well, what if New England wants him? He doesn't want to go hang out with Matt Patricia anymore, and they're not as close as San Francisco or Indy or New Orleans or even Washington, right?
Yeah, but from the Lions standpoint, again, like maybe that's better for them to take that deal because he's in the AFC and it's all about the draft pick comes. If you're the Lions, you have to take what's reasonably the best offer. I mean, if, splitting hairs, sure, you want to do right by your player because you don't want another Calvin situation. You don't want this Barry situation. I mean, this organization has had far too many black eyes in that regard for far too long. But reasonably, if the offers are similar, you send him to a good spot for him. That's also a good spot for you, right? You're not sending him to the Bears. You'd prefer to have him in the AFC than the NFC. But if Washington makes the best offer or San Francisco makes the best offer, you can certainly deal him to those spots to get him to a team that, in theory he's going to help them win.
Who's the best fit for you in terms of for the Lions? San Francisco is what, the 12th pick?
San Francisco has a 12th pick. I mean, I think that would be a great one, just because of the look. From the Lions standpoint, that's an excellent pick to have. The Indianapolis Colts, I think they have a ton of cap room. The Colts are a team that last year they gave up pick number 13, I think it was, for DeForest Buckner. And if you're trading that pick for a defensive lineman, you'd be willing to give up a first-round pick and then some for a quarterback that you think can put you over the top. I think Washington is another team that I certainly would watch. Those would be the top three suitors, I would guess, in my eyes. The one situation, to your point about not wanting to go to a spot that's not great, Denver to me would be the one situation that, maybe they think they're closer than anyone else in the NFL does. They're certainly not a quarterback away, and I don't think they would ultimately. I don't think they'll be in the mix for that reason. But George Payton,
what about New Orleans,
was in this situation for a long time, so maybe they are. New Orleans doesn't have the cap room. New Orleans would be another good situation, though. No Drew Brees. Obviously, there's some ties to Dan Campbell, so I certainly could see that one helping, or that one being in play. But they don't have the cap room, so they have a lot of work to do. I want to hear more about Carlos's theory, though, that Stafford's selfish and how this one went all sideways on the Lions here, because I just don't think the point, Carlos, is that I don't think that had Matthew not leaked this or his people not leaked this, it still would have got out. This is combine week. They're going to be talking to all these teams about trades. So it's not like they're just talking to one. They're talking to 5, 6, 7 teams. They know a deal is going to be made. And if there's more interest than one team in Matthew Stafford, which there will be, I just don't see how it impacts the bottom line of what they're going to get in return.
There's a difference between, shopping a player, as GMs and personnel people talk in front offices, versus knowing that a player wants to leave, that forces the team's hand. The team cannot have him on their roster. It's obvious that the Lions they're rebuilding. They're probably going to draft a quarterback pretty soon. And, all this, and Stafford's, his time is done in Detroit. People understand that, but if the Lions if there was nothing from Stafford of him going to the Lions to ask for a trade, they could have played it cagey and like, hey, Stafford's a great quarterback, just like the Holmes and Campbell said, he's amazing. He's a stud. We have no problem keeping him.
They've got 12, Carlos, they got 12 years of tape on him. I mean, come on, they can see what they can see. They understand what it is. And to Dave's point, of course, the general managers and scouts and these guys all talk, right?
Why is it that Holmes and Campbell are calling this a retooling and not a rebuild? Because they don't want to give the public impression to the NFL or anybody else that this is a teardown, that we're going to get rid of every high-priced player, free agent. We're going to go young. They don't want to make it seem that way. You always want to make it seem in negotiating that you have all options available to you. And Stafford saying, I want to get out of here. I'm going and I'm making it an issue. The teams know. The teams know now. And
but they knew anyway. How come we all listened to Holmes and Campbell, and we talked about this last week, the three of us, I think we did, or maybe, last week, we all picked up on the fact that they weren't sold on keeping Stafford. You could hear it in their voices, and both of them. And if we can figure that out as just measly little reporters, except for Dave, of course, he's Jesus. But if you and I could figure that out, right? And Dave obviously figured that out, then why the hell couldn't teams figure that out? Of course they can figure that out. Dave, come on, help me out here.
Well, I don't know. Part of it, I think, is, Stafford didn't want to go through a rebuild. So maybe by saying retool, there was some holding out some inkling of hope that Stafford would want to stay. I mean, but ultimately, you look at what the roster is and where things are. You got an animal outside barking at your front door, and you can call it a cat. It doesn't make it a cat. It's still a dog, right? So no matter what they call this, a retool, a rebuild, whatever, it's a rebuild, and they got a lot of work to do. And, barring some miraculous moves this offseason, we're probably looking at a pretty lean season in 2021 for the Lions.
They got the worst defense in the league, right? Or one of them.
Worst defense in the league, no receivers. I mean, Marvin Jones, obviously, he's not coming back, right? He doesn't want to play at the stage he is in his career. He doesn't want to be part of a rebuild. Kenny Galladay, I'm guessing you're going to have to franchise him to get him to come back, because a big selling point for him was being around Matthew Stafford. So, you have an offensive line, and you have a running back potentially in DeAndre Swift, but there's not much else that you can hang your hat on right now if you're the Lions.
TJ Hawkinson, a Pro Bowler? How dare you?
I mean,
well, you're right. Hawkinson does have some potential. Hey, real quick,
Tyrod Taylor will complete about 60 passes to him next year if they draft Trey Lance.
Yeah. Real quickly though, just looking ahead, and I know it's an interesting thing about where Stafford will wind up, and a lot of people around here are going to follow him next year, and probably secretly, or maybe not so secretly, root for him and pull for him. But what about looking at the draft and just the idea that they have to go look for a quarterback now? First time since 2009. The last time they did it was 2002. They took Joe Harrington with the third pick. And as I wrote in a column today, obviously that didn't work out well. Well, you know who went number one that draft? David Carr to Houston. And he was taken by a general manager in Charlie Casserly, who had had a lot of success in Washington, right? And found a lot of really good players. So it just kind of goes to show you that even good general managers have to get lucky when you're trying to figure out, can a quarterback make it in the NFL, because the information you have to, the speed of which you have to process information in the college versus the pros is almost impossible for even the best scouts to measure. If a quarterback can make that jump and handle that uptick in processing information, and it's kind of a guess, right?
Carlos, I saw you throw your hand.
I take exception to Shawn not recognizing that the Lions drafted Jake Rudock and Brad Kaya. I'm deeply offended, and I'm texting Jake Rudock right now with your.
Oh, I'm sorry. By the way, you know what? Real quickly, if you go back and look at just the number one quarterback, the quarterback's taken the number one, like since Peyton Manning, because I think there've only been two guys that have won a Super Bowl at that spot. It's the Manning brothers. Two others have played in it, Cam Newton and Jared Goff. But that's four in like 20, 25 years or whatever. But just the number one picks out of the however many quarterbacks have been taken, at 12, 13, 14, however many, only half of them worked out. I mean, that's so a 50% chance of failure with your quarterback at the number one spot.
50% of chance of failure, but that goes with any position. But the bottom line is you need a good quarterback to win in the NFL. So it's about identifying the right quarterback more than it is.
And how do you do that, right?
Quarterback at. And yes, you can find one at 8 like Josh Allen, or 10 or whatever Patrick Mahomes went, but the
24 at Aaron Rodgers,
odds of getting that guy are better when you're taking him in the first round, or when you have your pick of guys. And so it doesn't matter where they take them, but what the Lions really need to do is identify that guy this offseason, land that guy this offseason. That's why it's good Brad Holmes, especially in an offseason where we may not have a regular, there's no combine. Some of the pre-draft processes will not be the same. He has a deep background scouting. John Dorsey, who they're bringing on, the guy spent 3 days a week during the season watching college film. That was his Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sitting in his office in his house in Cleveland, watching college film. And he's the guy that drafted Patrick Mahomes. He's the guy that drafted Baker Mayfield. He was with the Packers when they drafted Aaron Rodgers. He signed Kurt Warner as an undrafted free agent. So I think the Lions have, people in place that can identify that right person. But, we all know Trevor Lawrence is going one, right? Now what the Lions have to discern is, who's next on their list. Is it Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, someone else? And then do they have to go up, and to your point, Shawn, earlier, do they have to go up and get that guy? Can they wait and get him at 7? Maybe it's some sleeper that they really like. But for me, if I'm the Lions, you need to hit this quarterback position. I mean, this is the most important draft choice they've had in decades, because new coach, new GM, new regime, chance that Aaron Rodgers is out of the division. Maybe finally there's a chance for, not in 2021, but somewhere down the road, for the Lions, if they get the quarterback position right, to be the team that everyone is gunning for in the NFC North.
Well, sorry, Carlos. I certainly don't think they have to go up and get somebody. I mean, if anything, you look at the playoffs in the last decade, it shows you that there are plenty of quarterbacks that have been taken, outside the top 5, certainly sometimes even some outside the top 10 that make deep runs in the playoffs. So you're right. It's all about finding out who they want, and then rolling the dice, and then hoping it works out. I mean, at some point, it's in some way, even with a guy like Dorsey, who's had a lot of success, it's still a matter of a little bit of blind faith, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you got to, I'm not saying you have to go up to get that guy. I'm just saying you have to identify that guy. And so whoever you think the guy is, you have to trust in your evaluations and get that guy, whatever the cost is, right? You're not going to get to one. Jacksonville's not trading that, and you probably won't get to two, because if the Jets really feel strongly about a guy, or they trade that pick to Houston or whatever, and they need a quarterback, you're probably not getting to two. But maybe there's a chance that with the compensation that you get from Stafford, that you'll have the ammo that you need to go get your guy. And if you don't have that ammo to go get somebody, you at least have some extra ammo to surround him with the talent that he needs to succeed.
I mean, as
Carlos Stafford proved, you can't do it alone in this league, right? As a quarterback.
No, right. Carlos would point out they've just had the number one pick in the draft for the last 12 years as a quarterback, and didn't win a playoff game, right, Carlos?
Let me check. Yeah, they have 0-3 under Stafford. So, yeah.
I mean, what do you think, Carlos? I mean, it's always fascinating to me, just the sort of the art versus the science here of trying to figure out how to identify and find a quarterback who can succeed at the NFL level. It's really interesting.
Who I really blame in this whole thing is college defensive backs. They're so terrible in college. It's really hard to measure. Like, these guys are tearing these guys apart, and even the SEC, I think they're not great.
Uh-oh, Shawn, we might have lost him.
But to his point, though, it's true. You watch the title game, or you watch the playoff games, and you see these quarterbacks like Mac Jones is throwing the receivers that are open by 3-4 yards. You know what I mean? It's sometimes even more down the field, which is on mistakes and so forth. But that's true. But I don't think it's just trying to fit to me, it's not the accuracy as much trying to fit it into the windows is the time, the time you have in the pocket. It's less. The linebackers are faster, right? The edge rushers are coming at you more quickly. The power up the middle. I mean, it's just, and then surveying the defensives, the strategies from the coordinators at the NFL level, and how they're mixing everything up a lot more.
Yeah, decision making is huge. The other thing I'd say about this is being in a situation where the Lions are now, and the way the game has evolved, maybe they have a chance to get a quarterback that has a little bit more of a dual threat ability, right? I mean, whether it's Justin Fields or Trey Lance, these guys are guys that can run, they can move. And if I'm the Lions and I'm building my offense, I think I'd like to incorporate some of that, just the way the game has changed, not to mention the coaches they have on staff. I mean, it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take Lombardi to look around and see that the Lions want to be a really good running team. And you see what Anthony Lynn has done with Tyrod Taylor and some quarterbacks of that ilk. I think, a guy like that, a guy like a Justin Fields, a guy like a Trey Lance that has some of that athletic ability. Maybe they're not ready in 2021. So maybe it is important to get a guy like Tyrod Taylor, but I think before long, you can see them doing some good things in a Lions uniform.
I mean, just Dave, look at the three quarterbacks who just played Sunday, right? At the four quarterbacks, three of them could run. Now, Aaron Rodgers doesn't run, and Mahomes doesn't run maybe as much as he even did his first year, but their ability to get out of the pocket and throw on a run, that's also big. And Josh Allen can flat out run. Right. To your point about somebody like Fields or something, but you're right. The way it's evolving, who knows? Maybe they can go get Deshaun Watson, and that would just solve everything.
Look, I put that on Twitter yesterday, just a little Twitter poll, right? Is Stafford and the number 7 pick for Deshaun Watson too much, too little? What do people think about that? And I wasn't necessarily advocating for that. I just kind of wanted to see what people thought about that compensation, because the talk is the Texans are going to want 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson, and so Stafford and number 7, that's a lot to give up.
What does Deshaun Watson look like if he's throwing to Travis Kelce and
sure.
Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah.
Is he that different from Mahomes?
I mean, Watson is a fantastic quarterback. He's one of the best ones in the NFL, and I know the Lions are not in. They're in a rebuilding state right now, and you don't usually go out and spend all that money on a quarterback. It behooves you to have a quarterback on a cheap contract if you do that. But Watson is a pretty special talent. So guys, Carlos just popped back in. So Carlos, I'll give you some word again here, but the clock is ticking on us. So, keep it brief, and we always run long, but this thing's going to end on us in a couple minutes here.
We love you, Carlos, but the trolling has to stop.
I know. I agree. Stop trolling me, Shawn.
Yeah. Come on, Carlos. Yeah, give us lay the wisdom on us, my man.
I don't know. What were you guys talking about? You were probably bad mouthing me when I was gone.
We were actually talking about we were talking about the idea of mobility in a quarterback and the way the game's changing and that sort of thing. And would the Lions be interested and that, and then also should they just try to go get Deshaun Watson?
If you can get Watson, great, but he's not coming here. He doesn't want to come here.
Right.
But the whole thing is, right, Anthony Lynn, like, he had 1 year as a coordinator in Buffalo, and I don't think he called plays with the Chargers. But he likes, I mean, he's a running backs guy. He likes to run the ball. I think they're going to want, if nothing else, balance, but definitely a mobile quarterback. And I'm just saying Tyrod Taylor because he played for him twice. But, if he's healthy, if they don't puncture his lung again, he should be. I'd get rid of Chase Daniel, who's also kind of mobile, but he didn't look good in the limited time we saw him. I'd go after Tyrod. I mean, people loved him. I know Dave hates Hard Knocks, but he came off as such a respected leader on Hard Knocks last year with the Chargers. So I think coordinators always want the guy they trust, and he's going to trust Tyrod Taylor. He's probably as good as any other free agent backup type guy. He's not going to demand a huge contract. He knows he's going to be okay. And that was the plan last year. Tyrod starts, Justin Herbert sits for a while until he got hurt. So not a bad way to go. I think someone like him, a mobile type quarterback. I think it'd be fun. I like watching mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. So why not?
Carlos, I actually like where you're going. I mean, if I was, look, this is January 26th, just throwing this out there, right? Like, as to how I maybe see this going for the Lions. Tyrod Taylor, Trey Lance sitting the bench as a rookie, very raw, very talented kid. Maybe he's a guy that, he takes a year or something to develop. But if you have a guy like Tyrod Taylor, who can at least, help keep you respectable, you're not going to win a lot of games, but keep you respectable in year one, and be a good leader for a young quarterback like that, maybe that's the direction that you go.
He was a really respected, helpful guy who knew his position. He knew he's not going to be the Chargers quarterback for life, that he's just getting Herbert ready. He would do the same thing here with Lance or whoever they get.
Obviously, he wants to play, but go ahead, Shawn. Let's hear your quarterback solution for the Lions in 2021.
No, I like what you're thinking. What do you guys think of Lance?
Look, I've said this, on Twitter, and I haven't watched him enough to have much of a personal opinion. I just know from talking to a couple of people around the league, like I said, extremely talented, extremely raw. He hasn't played a lot. He's still a young kid. He's 20 years old. So I just, I need to find out more about him personally, but given the state that the Lions are in, and given the options that they have available to them, I certainly could see that sort of Tyrod Taylor, Trey Lance duo at quarterback and going forward with that, because you don't need your rookie to be ready in 2021. What you need to do is find the guy that's going to lead you to a great deal of success down the road. So, and again, Brad Holmes and his background with scouting, John Dorsey and his knowledge of quarterbacks, I think that's a good duo to trust this pick to, and given the little that I know about Trey Lance right now, I think there's reason to believe that he could be in the mix.
I agree that, I hate to say it, but I'd have to trust Dorsey and Holmes. If they sign off on whoever it is, if it's Fields or if it's Lance, if they like what they see and they know who they have, and they have Anthony Lynn and, good teacher, respected, all that stuff. I could see it working. I mean, I who knows, Shawn, as you say, like, it's a crapshoot, but these guys sign off on it. They know quarterbacks, they know mobile quarterbacks. So, I'll ride with them if they're okay.
No, I'm with you. No, completely. And by the way, do you guys agree that what Sheila Ford Hampton, I guess to a degree, Rod would have done and putting together this sort of group of people to take the Lions forward? I mean, it's actually not bad on paper. I don't know if it'll work or not. Who knows? But I do like the idea that they decided, here's how we want to change the feeling in the building. Here are some of the character and traits we want. And then they went out and found those. And then they've been bringing in experienced people to kind of back up these two guys that they brought in. I don't know. It actually seems like there's a plan. Will it work? I have no idea. But does it feel different a little bit to y'all?
Leave it to Shawn to bring up another topic when I told him we were under 10 minutes and the clock is ticking down. So, Carlos.
No, just a quick question.
Honestly, this thing is going to shut off on us. Carlos, you have the last word.
Yes, I think there's a plan. Any plan that wasn't Chris Spielman running everything as the Phantom Menace up high and nobody knows what he's doing. Dorsey and these guys, it's a little bit of training wheels, but I like it. I mean, they're recognizing that Brad Holmes doesn't have all the answers, so they're accepting reality. So it's good. It's giving them the best chance, and there is a plan, Shawn. It does seem like there's a plan.
good people, a lot to learn on all sides for those people within the building. And ultimately it comes down to the players they acquire on the field. And we'll see if they do that. We'll see how well they mesh together, and we'll see if they do that and they pick the right people here. I guess in the coming months and really the coming years, because this is a multi-year rebuild for the Lions. That'll do it for us here, because again, our clock is ticking on Zoom. So for Carlos Monarrez and Shawn Windsor, I'm Dave Birkett, Freep.com.